Trump, you are on my last nerve, and I have been a fan from the beginning. I was all for MAGA, whatever the fuck. Make America great again, right? Can't make America great if you ain't got nurses, right? Because apparently they're not professionals now, right? Apparently they have not made the Trump administration list for professional jobs. They left nurses off. I don't know if that was a mistake, but I know they got a proofreader somewhere doing their job. So what do you mean nurses are not professionals? People that are saving lives. Are you kidding me right now? Nurses are literally the branches of doctors. And you're not just talking about like nurses. We're talking like, it's talking like nurse practitioners, physicians assistants, and up. Medical doctors. Like, are you kidding me?
Absolutely. And all over the United States right now, you got so many people within many of these fields have like, they're furious. They're in outrage because they're like, okay, why are you now considering my degree specifically as non-professional? And I even decided to look it up and see what are the key changes that would, take effect because of this reclassification. And pretty much all they said is, you're going to have different loan caps, right? Because we do have a crisis of student loan debt across the board. We know many people get, student loans or whatever the case is. And shout out to AI and Google. I know AI is not the best source, but at the same time, I always go back and fact check it from many different sources as well. I just like how it's concise on this site, right? But as we look at it, a plan called for a borrowing cap of $50,000 per year, as well as a lifetime limit of $200,000, which I think it's pretty reasonable, right? Because we already see so many people going into massive debt for degrees that they barely even use, right? I'm not saying that's the situation for everybody, but a lot of situations we see that as well. And also, I even looked at the list of still non-professional degrees now. I looked at the degrees that they changed, right? At the top, you've got nursing, you got physicianal assistants, you have physical therapists, audiologists, social workers, occupational therapies. The biggest one that I was looking at, I was like, whoa, this is absolutely blowing my mind. You have architects, you have accountants, educators, business master degrees, okay, and engineering is now considered a non-professional degree. Now, I saw a couple sources that said, oh, it's just master's degrees versus, just regular engineering. But at the end of the day, when I see things like this, it makes me wonder, what is going on in the administration's mind when they see these different things? Now, I get it. I understand because student loan debt is out of control. People, stack up their accounts and, spend so much money on these degrees. But at the same time, it is ridiculous. And if you notice one different thing, across all of these fields, specifically in human health services, they're pretty much women and female dominated fields. You got nursing, a lot of these things, social workers, public health. These are all women dominated fields. And there has been an uproar within so many different groups of people speaking out about this. Now, by all means, I don't know if that's necessarily their reasoning, but at the same time, when we talk about things like Project 2025 and all these different programs that they have already announced that they're doing, yeah, it does spark some questions amongst many different things. But this is MAGA. She supported the programs. And I mean, hey, we're here now. I think, a lot of this was already talked about, within things like Project 2025. But at the same time, we're here.
Are you kidding me? Now I want to see this list of professionals. But at the end of the day, someone who understands the anatomy of the body and how it works and the homeostasis of the body and how all of it works together. Trump, you better hope something don't happen to you. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and pretty much they said, I was curious as to why they chose the fields that they chose. And they were saying, oh, they're getting rid of the fields that are considered theory and pretty much just academic learning versus fields that depend on actual skills to get you a job, which is still, that didn't even connect the dots for me. But like I said, so many people are figuring out, and it is what it is. You're going to see this affect a lot of people who are deciding to go into school and go into these fields. And the biggest thing that I'm going to say before we get to this next video is, guys, when you think about it, why not just put a cap on the amount that it costs to go to some of these colleges? Why not put a cap? Why not make it max for a school to be able to charge you $20,000 or $10,000 a year or whatever the case is? Why even allow them to charge that much instead of putting the cap on the loans, right? Because people still got to go and people still have to pay for these schools regardless of if you want to put a cap on it or not. So are you going to just leave it to only for the people who are the rich and upper class? Is that what we're saying? Oh, we're going to leave it for the people who can actually afford it? Or are we going to keep it open for people who actually want to go into the field regardless of what their income is? That's all I'm saying.
On this edition of FAFO, titled, I Voted for You and I Thought My Career Was Safe. So, the Department of Education has done a reclassification of certain degrees that are now deemed non-professional, meaning that certain fields that were previously considered professional will no longer qualify for the higher federal student loan limits needed for graduate school as part of the One Big Beautiful Bill that was signed into legislation recently. And the following careers include nursing, physician assistants, physical therapists, audiologists, architects, accountants, educators, social workers, engineering, business master programs, counseling or therapy, and speech pathology. And in response to this, Wendy Brinley Hines wrote this on the White House Facebook page, saying, please remove the limitations of professions. As a professional nurse who has her master's degree, and as someone who voted each time for you, I cannot believe that you would disrespect our profession. Additionally, our middle daughter will graduate as a physical therapist in 1 month, and our youngest is planning on becoming a physician's assistant, all of which take care of patients on a daily basis. Grad school is very expensive. Trust me, I know. I have paid my way myself for each level of education. Please reconsider your thoughts on this bill. We all need professional staff that can afford education in their effort to care for our nation.
And guys, think about the effect that this is going to have on so many fields within things like healthcare and engineering as well. Because consider this, right? We already have a nursing shortage as it is within the United States, right? Like we already have a huge demand for fields like this. And I'm not saying that it takes $1 million to become a nurse. I'm not saying that, people aren't going to be able to become a nurse. But when we talk about people going to, master and secondary school just to become things like nurse practitioners and also other doctor roles around the United States, yes, you are going to have an elevated cost that you're going to need to cover to go to that school. That's just how it works. And that is the problem that I have with this. I completely understand. And I'm coming from an unbiased and objective place amongst this whole system, right? I understand exactly where they're coming from. We're trying to lower the debt ceiling. We're trying to lower the amount of debt that people and students are able to have access to. I get it. I completely understand. I just don't agree with how they're doing it, if that makes sense, right? And the biggest thing, like I said, and I'm going to end it right here, lower the amount that schools can charge for these degrees. That's it.